It's 11, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know we've got several people that will be hopping on um, in the next few minutes, but I want to make the most of our time today. Hey, Emily, I see you just joined as well. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute you all. And I'm really excited to have you all here today. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, since I do want to wait until we have a few more folks on to really start to dig into some of the questions we want to cover today, I just wanted to say good morning and thank you all for being here. Really excited to kick off this Lunch and Learn series. Unfortunately, KJ Hardy, the executive director at Chicago Foundation for Education, came down with what looks like it might be coronavirus. So she's in bed. I didn't want her to even think about trying to work today. So send her good thoughts, and I know that she's eager to host another one of these as soon as she is up and at 'em. So, how's everyone doing this morning?
Good.
Good.
Love it. So we're going to go ahead. I'm actually going to share. Hey, Jessica. I see Jessica joined as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to hear from everyone here, really what help you need right now, what's going on in your world, and just open it up to a discussion about how we can support each other. Because one of the things that I've seen a lot of in my reading, and I know you've experienced it as well, and one of the reasons we're hosting this is there's just a real glut of fantastic webinars right now, fantastic resources, but they can be very one-sided. So you're sitting there, with burning questions that you don't get answered. And similarly, I've gotten feedback that they're very focused on self-care or very focused on specific parts of fundraising, but it's hard to find just conversations with your peers that are sort of all in the same boat together. So that's our goal today. My job is to listen to the questions, see if I can provide answers and guidance, but for you all to just have a place where we can turn our video on, see each other's faces, and connect to nonprofits around the country, which is great. Any questions on that?
No.
Love it. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my face again, but if you can, and I'll call out names, share your name, your organization, your position with the organization, and where you are in the country. And then go ahead and tell us what's a recent win you've experienced, and 1 to 2 challenges or topics you want to discuss with the group today. So I will get started. I'm going to turn my video on here. Hi, everyone. And I'm going to unmute you, Jessica, as well, because I want to hear your voice. So my name's Catherine Ashton. As most of you know, it's really fantastic to see familiar faces this morning. I am the founder and principal of Giant Squid Group, and we work with small and startup nonprofits to help them build their fundraising capacity. So yay there. Hey, Emily. A recent win. It's always good to think about what's going well. I think is the fact that my husband is building a 19-foot long, 10-foot tall playscape in our yard so we can go run our daughter ragged. And on the work side, one of Giant Squid Group's clients is a finalist for one of the community giving grants here in Austin, Impact Austin. So getting that done next week's very exciting. Emily, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are, and a win and some challenges you're having.
Yeah, so I'm Emily Bati. I'm the Director of Development at Wesley Community Center in Houston, Texas. I am a department of 1.5, and so our organization works to lift people up out of poverty, and we have tons of programs that kind of help us do that. So right now, one of our big programs, or several of our programs, are closed. We have a senior citizens program where they come in the mornings, and obviously we can't continue running that. And we have early Head Start and child care and after school care, which have been closed. But we do also have a food pantry, which is running, although the Houston Food Bank is actually kind of low on supplies, so we're challenged there. And we offer rent assistance, rent utility assistance to individuals. But when this happened, we didn't have any of that available at the time. So we've gotten some grants in, and so that's great because starting next week, we're going to be starting to provide rent assistance for individuals. The area that we work in is primarily Hispanic and low income, and a lot of the money that we do have for rental assistance on a regular basis is federal money. And so people need a social security number, and a lot of our people do not have social security numbers. So now that we've gotten some private funding, we're able to open this up so that we can offer it to more people. And one of the wins was I had a group from a company come out in the fall to volunteer with us. And they came and volunteered at the food pantry, and they were great, and they helped in our community garden and everything. And then they reached out to me shortly after we kind of went into lockdown mode and said, hey, we think we want to do something. Tell us what you guys are doing right now. And I told them how we were still operating, and they gave us $10,000 this week.
That's
so
awesome.
that was pretty exciting.
And Emily, is there anything in particular that you are hoping to talk about with other folks this morning?
I don't know that I have anything in particular. Just, I think everybody's sort of struggling. There goes my son in the background with, kids working from home, working with lots of distractions, and kind of how to stay focused and maybe not overload our donors with information, because I know I'm getting so many emails about this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, but also feel like we're keeping our people informed. So
yeah, that's fantastic. I'm gonna take some notes in the back of that. Alexa, how about you? Tell us where you are, what you do, and your wins and challenges.
Hi, Catherine and everybody. Catherine and I work together at the Chicago Waldorf School, and I am in Chicago. I'm development director for an organization called Illinois Legal Aid Online, and we provide legal tools mostly to underserved populations throughout the state of Illinois. And my big win, which I had nothing to do with, was that we got a $48,000 check yesterday in the mail, which was money that was left over from a class action suit.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Yes.
That's fantastic. Great
Come
way
at a better
to
time. Some of the things I want to talk about, and this may not impact anyone else. I've always worked for an organization that provides more of a direct service. I work for rape victim advocates and a domestic violence organization. So working for this type of organization where the people who use our services are not able to afford to make donations is challenging. We have a very generous and committed and engaged board. And we raise a lot of money through events, which we've had to reschedule because of the pandemic. So I guess my biggest challenge is how to figure out to explain to donors our need during this time, because our need is as great as other organizations' needs, but it's hard for people to see that.
Yeah, for sure. That's a fantastic question, Alexa. Thank you. Elizabeth, how about you? Let's remind us where you are, what your role is, and then your wins and challenges right now.
Yeah, I apologize in advance if you hear my dogs.
Girl, we're all there.
So I'm the director of partnerships for the Girl Scouts of Greater Chicago, Northwest Indiana. And we were sort of on the verge of a bunch of wins. We had a huge environmental event that we were supposed to have in early May at Navy Pier with a ton of different partners and exhibitors. And then obviously we had to cancel that one. So I guess some wins from that were you know, how do people still want to engage with us in some way? Maybe other small lead up events when we're able to do events again. Now it's going to be a whole year later. So we've had some really awesome responses of people who are willing to, like, mostly smaller environmental organizations who are just willing to create online programming for our girls, which we're really revamping completely at the moment. So seeing that people are still excited about us in some ways is really cool. But then I guess some of my questions are around, you know, even though I'm not explicitly development, usually when we talk to new partners, we have, of course, a variety of ways they can engage with us. And many of those ways are like sponsor an event, sponsor a badge, you know, things like that. And so we don't even know to what extent we should be bringing up any kind of money conversation at this point.
Yeah. Like how and when to fundraise.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I'm going to skip over. My wonderful father is on the call listening, and he is not a fundraiser, so I'm not ignoring him. He's just here to learn. And I'm going to jump to Melanie. Good morning, Melanie.
Cool.
And Melanie, you're on mute, so unmute and tell us about yourself.
Good.
Hey.
Call. Hi, how are you?
Good morning.
Morning. So I'm probably more of a lurker here than anything. I have been the marketing director for the Austin Healthcare Council, which is a nonprofit, but I'm still trying to figure out, you know, right now we're trying to not only remind our membership that we exist, but remind them that we are absolutely vital as everything has been changing. So we're trying to work with different healthcare organizations and the different outreach that has been happening in Austin and getting those groups to talk to each other so that they can kind of mitigate the overlap, find the gaps, and really help out the community as best we can right now. But I'm more just kind of lurking because I've never worked with a nonprofit before. So trying to figure out, you know, how do we engage our membership? How do we drive value for them? All of those things I've been like secretly lurking on everything that Kat posts and sends because it's been unbelievably helpful.
Oh, good. Well, we're so happy to have you here. And I think, you're going to learn a lot from everyone on the call and know all of you, which is really exciting. Jessica is a member of Giant Squid Group, and I actually am going to ask her to share a recent win and anything that she wants to add. So Jessica, tell us just your 10-second spiel on any salient topics you've been thinking about. Unless we lost her. We might have lost her. Karen, good morning. I'm so happy to see you on the call. You are on mute. You still there? We might have lost her as well. Hopefully they will pop back on. Well, so what I'm hearing, she's not in a position to talk right now. So happy to have you here, Karen. We will see you on the next one. So the questions that I'm hearing, I really was hearing a through line from everyone. So I do want to open it to conversation. And so I'm going to reiterate the notes that I heard, and then we'll just dive right in. And you're all absolutely welcome to be off mute and just chat. So that's the rest of the call. We'll spend about half an hour chatting. So I heard how not to overload our donors, but how to keep people informed is a really great question, which I think also ties into, Melanie, what you just said. How do we remind people we exist and that our work still really matters? So how do we articulate this new needs statement that is obviously the same needs statement that you had that should, align with your vision and mission, but in this time of pandemic? And then how do we explain to our donors what we're doing and why, and which is particularly challenging if you're not direct service. So anything that I missed out of that, and of course, then how do we fundraise through all of this? I think that's a really great topic. So does anyone have any inspiration you want to share or wisdom about how to articulate your needs statement right now in a way that will engage donors when they're thinking about, oh my gosh, how do I get groceries and my kid's driving me crazy? Melanie's shaking her head.
It's all a little nuts right now, and part of it that I've been trying to think of is, how can we be engaged in solving all of the problem, not all, but like some small portion of the problems that everybody is seeing right now. And then, say that to our membership, so
Right.
Does that mean, is it, if we're all just making masks and sending them to hospitals or whatever it is that we as an organization are doing, to then figure out how we can appropriately broadcast that out so that it does become a, not only is this happening, this is what we're doing, and this is why we still need your support type thing. I mean, I think that would be a big part of it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, how are people communicating with your donors right now? Can you guys give me an example of the channels, social media, email, all of that? What sort of messages you've been sending, and what response, if any, you're getting from folks?
We are making phone calls to major donors. I'm having my executive director do that since I just started in January and I really don't know any of the donors yet.
Yeah.
So we're working on that. And we did have sponsors who committed to our event. So I'm in touch with all of them by telephone and email. We've done one email blast that was not particularly successful. We included a soft ask, so we're doing another one where we're actually telling constituents, asking them to consider making a donation, sharing information about us on social media, and things like that. And we're gonna be having the board making calls also.
That's great. So a lot of that personal outreach. What about anyone else? What sort of outreach have you been conducting?
Well, again, mine's a little weird maybe because it's not explicitly development, but for our partners, we've been trying to just engage with them somehow more like as a resource and then see where it goes. So we've been sending like, hey, in case you, like any of your employees have kids who are bored at home, here are all of our online resources for the Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
And then if they respond, we're like, cool, how else do you want to engage?
That's fantastic. So really just keeping the lines of communication opening and continuing to position yourselves as a resource. I think that's really critical. And Emily, you were the one, I believe, that said, there's a lot of overload right now. We all have so many emails. So what, as a donor and as a recipient of those emails, how is that making you feel? And then as a fundraiser, what is the feeling you want your constituents to have when they hopefully open your email?
Well, I think one thing was, so we sent out an email like as soon as we knew we had to close our most of our programs because we follow the public school schedule. And so, we made an announcement. We're closing. We're still keeping our food pantry open. We'll still be reachable. People are working remotely. And then, they've been extending it and so the last time they extended it, my executive director's like, send out another email saying that they've extended it. And I kind of thought I don't think people really care. I think they're going to assume that we're going to be closed because Harris County says we can't leave our homes until the end of the month. So it's kind of I don't want to just send another email that says, hey, we're staying closed. So I tried to make it more, here's what we're seeing. We're getting 100 phone calls a day from people who want, we're looking for food and they're looking for rent assistance. We're seeing X number of people come to the food pantry. So I tried to, and we're delivering food to our senior citizens. So I was trying to make it a little bit more here's what's going on. Instead of just hey, we're closing even longer, and we did send out a solicitation email kind of in between those. And we did get a little bit of response. I mean, it wasn't a huge response, but we, raised a couple $1,000s from that, which our email and online fundraising is not very it's not very robust. So that's pretty good for us for an email solicitation. We've been doing the same thing that Alexa mentioned of calling our major donors. I had our executive director call our top 5 donors, and one of them said, I'll bring a check over tomorrow or whatever. So, and that wasn't even what she was calling. She was just saying, hey, this is what's going on here. So I think that those have been positive. That we started this year, we're starting a major gifts program. So we're very early in the stages of it. And so, so there's people that, we haven't really started the process with yet. So there's still people that we're not well connected with. And I'm new, I've been there just a year, and my executive director has been there like a year and a half. So we're all a little bit new. So yeah. And I think the moving forward with keeping in touch, we've been doing lots of social media. We're trying to keep a lot of the updates there, because we also see a lot of clients using our Facebook to get information as well.
That's fantastic. Well, and it sounds like really quantifying what you're doing versus just saying we're closed. Or one of the things I've really been seeing that, I'd love to brainstorm how we can stay away from that as in our communications is, we need money, is having a response. And the fact that you were able to raise a few $1,000s. And obviously, Emily, you're in a more unique position than someone like Alexa, because you are serving a direct need, right? So of course folks, are wanting to make sure our neighbors are fed, but that rather than just adding to the noise and another email that says, here's how we're handling coronavirus, you provided some really critical updates. That sounds really successful. And Alexa, in terms of not being direct service right now, how are you thinking about positioning those updates to stay away from the need statement being, we need your cash, and to pivot it more to why your work is still so important?
We're doing it. I use the program Canva a lot.
Yeah, I love Canva.
I did a graphic on Canva that had numbers on it and pictures of people.
That's great.
I'm happy to share it with Kat, and she can share it with everybody else.
I love that.
But and then there's going to be a short email just about how people can help us during this time. But it's really focused on numbers. Like we've had a 5,000% increase in calls about unemployment and emergency food stamps and eviction and domestic violence. And our numbers are just so out of sight because of everything that's going on. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to add is we are not asking prospective sponsors for money right now. We decided with our benefit chair and our internal benefit committee that it would be disrespectful to ask. These are major law firms and corporations. They have enough going on right now. So we're going to wait on sponsorships until Governor Pritzker lifts the stay-at-home order, which could be even the end of May from what I'm hearing. But we have about $70,000 in sponsorships right now. But our goal in sponsorships is $260,000. So we are a long way from there. But our event was rescheduled to October. So if we could go back to work in May, that would be great. And if we'll be in trouble.
And I think the sponsorship question is a whole other conversation I'd love to have. So I'll get that on the books because it is a really meaty conversation. We just had Sharon join. So Sharon, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you can introduce yourself, who you're with, where you are, and then share one win and anything you would really like to discuss today, a challenge or just a discussion point.
Sharon Guess with NAMI, Central Texas. We're the local affiliate for National Alliance on Mental Illness. A win around this crisis, I'm just going to say that something that has encouraged me is how many of the folks that I've been talking to who want to help and are very free and understand because of the mental health issues that may be triggered, or the anxiety and the stress and what we're doing, and they want to help. I just got off the phone, is why I was late. I apologize, with someone who is bilingual, and it was like, how can I help so that we can get stress and anxiety management to our Spanish speaking community.
Yeah.
We were talking about that. I don't know what's the technology, that kind of thing. So, and a challenge that I'm having right now is, thank you for the sponsorship question, because
Yeah.
our walk is scheduled right now. We have a walk September 26th. You know, I have maybe a third of the sponsorships confirmed. You know, you had enough that they were just about to confirm a little bit more, you know, and then COVID hit. But all of our, most of our money on the walk comes from teams and individuals. Are we going to walk? Are we going to have to wear masks? Or, I mean, you know, so, but sponsorship is the big thing right now, is when do you ask? When do you start trying to get the temperature? So.
Yeah, that's such a meaty question. And Karen, before you hopped on, we were talking about, which I think does relate to sponsorships, really how to cut through the noise and communicate effectively, because we heard from almost everyone that there's so much communication right now. It's so overwhelming. I know at the start of this, you know, it was like our banks emailing us, and our, you know, the app I use to like track our retirement account is telling me like people are washing their hands here. And I'm going, I so don't care, you know? So every day I feel like I get 10 emails about how companies are responding to COVID-19, and very few of them really add anything to my day or my life, or, you know, teach me something I don't know. So I wanted to share two examples that I thought one was really effective and one wasn't effective from nonprofits, just talk you through them and open that up for conversation around how you can take those best practices as you continue to communicate. So I got one, which was right at the beginning of all of this, when the pulse was really, oh my gosh, how are we going to fundraise? No one's going to fundraise. We can't do anything. And I got this email from an organization that I donate to that basically said, here's everything we're doing. And just like Emily and Alexa said, here's the numbers. And they work with immigrants at the border. It's these Lawyers for Good Government was who it was from. And basically it said, hey, we know you're all really, really thinking about, you know, where to get toilet paper, but don't forget that there are still, you know, thousands and thousands of immigrants that need our help really now more than ever. Not to overuse that phrase, now more than ever. And it was just this shock of like, oh my gosh, yes. Like this. So I think I actually increased my donation, because it was such an effective way of saying, yes, we're not direct service, we're a group of lawyers, but we are fighting even harder now. And then just a few days ago, I got an email from an organization, and it basically was this very long email about how they were going to go broke if we all didn't donate. And I've never donated to them. And so it was really uninspiring. And of course, we're all fundraisers. So I'm going, don't you have reserves? Where's your board? You know, I know you guys have been around for 30 years. So the fact that, you know, yes, we're all really, really suffering, but if you're going to go broke in a month, I have, you know, this is not where I want to spend my money. And they're not direct service. They are an organization that works with underserved youth. They're a literacy organization. And it was really a turnoff. And, you know, it doesn't make me think any less of their work and their mission, but it certainly didn't inspire me to open my wallet. So as we're trying to, you know, as Melanie said, remind people we exist, which I think is really critical, and remind people that no matter what you're doing, whether you're an arts organization, a legal organization, or direct service, that your work really still matters. I think how we craft that message is critical. So that's really, you know, the conversation we're having. And then tying that into sponsorships, how can we then use the next, say, month, gosh, hopefully it's just a month, to share that message with sponsors, to build those relationships a little deeper, so that when we come out of this, we are positioned to increase our sponsorship revenue, not, you know, miss our goals. So I'd love to share anything that's been percolating in your minds about sponsorships other than fear, because I know we're all particularly around sponsorships in this fear place.
That's a really good point that you mentioned too, about the idea where we're trying to expand what people are focused on right now, in order to get them to realize that the rest of the world still exists.
Yes.
And that's a good thing for all of us to think about, especially right now, because we're all going to be very like, okay, you know, a lot more people are next to me than they ever were before.
Right.
you know, and a lot more people are going to be very, very internally focused. And then to remind the world that what we do is still exceptionally important, and that kind of broadening of this still exists. It's, you know, it's like going through a stages of grief. When someone has passed away,
Yeah.
you immediately just go, well, the world's exploding in 2 weeks, and that's just how it is, you know. And you see a baby and you're like, well, that's some bullshit, you know. Just like everything that your brain does when you're in crisis mode and trying to encourage people. I think part of that too would be reminding our donors that we're looking to how we're going to adjust and change after all of this, that it's not just going to be us hunkering down and getting through this. While that's a big part of it, it's us looking forward to how will the fabric of our organization be forever changed, and how will we make sure that all of those changes are for better, and that they force us to be better.
Yeah.
That's my thought on that.
I actually had 2 conversations this morning with some close donors, larger donors. Just I figured I know them well enough. I can ask them, hey, what's the temperature out there? You know, for ask, this is what I'm dealing with. You know, you don't want to be tone deaf, especially as a mental health organization. What do you think? This is what we're thinking. And both of them have been receiving lots of asks, some of them personal, you know, coming saying we're doing this. But that was exactly, Melanie, what she was saying, was talking about what you're doing and how you're still relevant, and how maybe this crisis has helped you change, or what you're going to do after it, and all of this. But reminding them, they were like, both of them separately were like, this is what we're looking for to continue with donating after the crisis, because we have to think about, you know, I keep saying we have to think about getting through this, but then I don't want to leave a sour taste in a donor's mouth after the crisis, you know. I don't want to take it. So that was their advice.
I love that, Sharon. Thank you for sharing that. And it
That's
sounds like
great.
everyone is doing that. So you all get like big gold stars for the way you're proactively communicating. And it sounds, and I love, Karen popped in with a chat, which is so true. It's not about the organization and its survival. It's about those you serve. And it sounds like we're all doing a good job focusing on those we serve, and really amplifying their stories and their need right now, because no one is not impacted by this. So A+ there. So then tying that to the sponsorship question, which, you know, quite frankly, is something I have been thinking a ton about. How can we set our communications up, our fundraising up, and our relationships up over the next, say, 90 days, so that as we start soliciting sponsors, whether it's next month or over the summer, which is next month basically, for those fall events, it does feel authentic and reciprocal, and like Sharon says, doesn't leave a sour taste in your mouth. And this is something I've really been sitting with, because, you know, here in Austin, I know Chicago's probably the same way. We're just seeing small businesses ravaged. And we live in a suburb in the north of Austin, and we have one coffee shop, and it's really the heart of the community, and they had to lay off their entire staff. So I'm already thinking about, you know, some of my clients that would go to them to get the gift bags and the gift cards and the funds, how tone deaf it would be, right, as they're struggling for survival. And how we can really identify opportunities for reciprocity and deep relationship building with those potential sponsors, so that when we come out of this, it is a new type of sponsorship. So I'd love to hear any ideas, thoughts, no matter how crazy they are, of what you think sponsorship might look like or could look like as we weather this.
We sent an email pretty soon after all of this started in Chicago, and I think we're a little bit ahead of you in terms of timing, but we sent an email to prospective sponsors who had been asked but who hadn't committed yet. And basically, in a few, we didn't say it like this, but the message was, we're not going to bother you right now. We're going to wait until things get better. And then there will be communication. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Every board member sent it to their contacts. And we actually, through all of this, we actually got a fairly large sponsorship. So yeah, we just basically told people, we hope you're okay and talk to you later.
I love that. So one way of showing that you appreciate them is more than just a checkbook, is recognizing that they're really not going to be focused on your event in the short term. That's great. And did you get any responses to that feedback other than that unexpected sponsorship?
That I don't know, because it went out from the board members, though they're pretty good about keeping me updated. Everyone's head is just spinning right now. So even though my event's important to me and pretty important to our board, I just know it's not on people's radar the way it would be if COVID-19 wasn't in place.
Yeah. We have presentations trying to stay, I love the idea of telling them we're not going to bother you about sponsorship, because that's what people keep saying. Okay, when are you going to do this and all this? I kept in contact with business supporters, because we do have some seminars that we have done on like stress and anxiety management as a mental health that we were doing, as well as we are now having businesses contact us for presentations that they can live stream to their employees around working from home, or all those kinds of different things. So we had that sort of that vehicle to keep in touch with them, but not around sponsorships, not around money, not around anything like that. So my hope is that it will help us on the other end. It's kind of like your letter, we're not going to bother you now about the sponsorship. We just had the ability to say, maybe here's something for your employees that will help them.
That's a great idea. Yeah, that's really good. By the way, Sharon, did you know that someone from NAMI was on the Today Show this morning?
I did not.
Yes, I can't remember. I can't remember who it was, but I was very impressed with, they were talking about stress during this time and how people can handle it. But for people who have existing mental conditions, how much harder it is. Anyway, sorry to get off topic, but it was very interesting.
I have to check that out, unless Catherine's checking it out. But
I can't easily find it, but we will. But I love that. I love that. So providing real value to your sponsors and donors in this time, I think is what I'm hearing, whether it's salient updates about here's what we're doing, right? And going back to Emily, you said we're not just going to send an email that says we're closed, but really providing them an opportunity to reconnect with their community and tell them what you're doing. To Alexa, just sharing the numbers of the impact, or not even the impact, the need that you're having is something. Any ideas on how we can take that further to what Sharon was saying? We're providing something of real value, and obviously everyone's mileage varies, these workshops or something, so that you are demonstrating this real long-term relationship. Because, one of the things with sponsorships that can get fatiguing, right, is we put together these sponsorship levels with all these pretty check marks, and we say you're going to get all this brand visibility and this is going to help your business, right? That's what we're saying. This is going to help your business. Well, now we sort of have to prove that, right? That prove a partnership with us is more than just a philanthropic investment. So I'd love to hear any ideas you have on how you could really support those business partners. It's a hard question.
No, I think what Sharon's doing is really important, because you're making it much more about the donor than about the organization. So it's very donor centric. What can we do for you?
Right.
Yeah. But not
lucky to have those workplace presentations already, so you didn't have to create any new programming. But Alexa, for someone like you, and you have this, this fantastic sponsorship goal of almost $300,000, how can you demonstrate that donor-centered partnership to your potential sponsors other than respecting their space?
Well, hopefully the next time we communicate with them, we will be definitely out of shelter at home. So I think that just sharing the numbers with them, like how much people really depended on us during this crisis. And they get the prospective sponsors do not get emails because they haven't signed up for them yet.
Right.
So, yeah, it's kind of like we have to go back to square one and explain to them what we've been doing during the past X number of months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really great. Elizabeth, I'm curious with the partnerships you have, because you talked about how you're trying to position yourself as a resource for them during this time. Some of the ways you've done that to really keep these relationships with your community partners strong.
Yeah, so our partners are so different from like really tiny nonprofits doing, you name the type of direct service work, to huge corporations. So it varies a lot. But I think I mentioned earlier, you know, some of them are really into creating online programming with us, which is of course good for them because we're going to put it out to our huge audience. You know, they made a webinar for us or whatever. We have also been we haven't done any yet, but trying to brainstorm ways to also like be a resource for not just children of employees of these partners, but the employees themselves. Maybe like whether it's not really a lunch and learn, but just some way to stay connected with us, maybe on a specific topic, like how are you doing at home? You know, how to stay focused, like that sort of thing. Or, you know, we used to go to a lot of networking events. Maybe we provide a space for women to network at lunchtime and like not talk about all this terrible stuff. So yeah, I think we're kind of still brainstorming, and it looks super different for everybody, but we're also trying to think of doing the dance of how much is too much information, but maybe it's some type of little newsletter, which I know like nobody really wants to get, but if it's partner specific, sort of focusing on, you know, whether we have some updated things about what we're doing for our girls, of course, with the girl focus, but then also a little partner focus on maybe a cool event or something that we did with them previously, giving them a little value so they can maybe share that content with their partners and show the values that they have because they support us. We're a little bit all over the place, but those are the thoughts right now.
I love that. Well, and I'm really curious. I love the idea of this really specific programming. For instance, you know, a networking opportunity that's not about coronavirus. How are you identifying those opportunities? Are you surveying your partners? Is this all internal? What's that process looking like for you?
It has so far been an internal brainstorm. I would love to do a survey. And again, I can't decide if that's just annoying people, you know, if they would take it that way or what. I'm not sure yet.
Well, what do y'all think? Would she be annoying?
It's such a fine line.
Yeah.
And one that you don't want to step over. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to keep them short. I found that if they're more than 5 questions, it's not going to happen. Lately, I found that every time I'm asked to send out a survey, nobody responds. But it's also like CEOs of hospital organizations. So we're trying to figure out, you know, when it was in person, we would give them a sheet of paper and a bunch of pens and be like, okay. But now that it's all online, it's like, they're like, yeah, somebody will fill that out. And I get back there and it's like, it only has my little test to make sure it worked. Nobody else filled it out.
And Melanie, with those surveys, what sort of information are you asking for?
So we started doing, we would normally have in-person meetings every month. And they're kind of like lunch and learn. We have a speaker that you would normally have to go fly to see. And we have all of our CEOs in one room and they all get to kind of chat and learn together and all that kind of stuff. But before that, I mean, as technologically advanced as they had gotten was a phone bridge. So I put us all on a WebEx system and we're, you know, having meetings that way and trying to figure out what are the best practices for those meetings. But the surveys have been a lot of, you know, like, how often should we have these virtual meetings? What do you want to see more of? Do you want to hear from the other members? Like all of those kinds of things. So, because we're just trying to figure out like what's working and what's not in terms of the actual immediacy of these online events. You know, how do we get you more engaged in these, essentially? And what do you like to see? What do you want to see more of? But apparently I don't want to see more surveys. So.
I'm just wondering if maybe now isn't the best time to send
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
wait until things calm down a little bit. There's so much uncertainty in the world right now. I don't think anyone would get angry, but you may not get a real high response rate either.
Yeah. There's a lot of time fatigue. I'm finding like people
Mhm.
are just they just go, I'll do that later. I don't know. Like that is not part of this. So as soon as I'm done, I'm done. You know, I'll jump in on the call, but as soon as it's over, I don't know if I really want to stay and fill out a survey, something like that. So.
Well, I think those are both really, really excellent points that now everything is so uncertain. It's hard to think about what we even might want, next week, because think about where we were a month ago. And then secondly, that time fatigue is real as well. And I always encourage us when we're thinking about trying to communicate with our donors and reach them is to put ourselves in their shoes. I'm imagining we're all donors in our own capacity. And I know to me, time is, really, truly meaningless right now, where I know what meetings I have to be on because my Google Calendar tells me. And other than that, 2 weeks can go by and I'm looking at that, one letter I was going to send to my sister and it's still sitting there. And I go, oh, that was yesterday. I'm like, my grandmother texted me yesterday. She's like, oh, we were supposed to chat last weekend. I haven't heard from you in 5 days. I'm like, it was yesterday. Oh no, that was 5 days. So when we compound that, and especially, when Melanie, you're talking about the CEOs of hospitals, or Alexa, your sponsors are lawyers that, have a lot going on, our surveys and emails and everything really do risk being noise. And so I love the ideas that you have shared, and I think we can all learn from that is simple, right? Use simple graphics, use numbers, don't make them work at all, because if we ask anyone to work, they're just, we're too tired. We're too tired and overwhelmed. And like Melanie said, almost in these stages of grief, to think outside of, do this, click here, this is the one thing I can handle today. So I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, like every click, people just drop right off.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really great. Well, it is 11:47, so I want to wrap up with any last questions or thoughts or ideas you all might have. So anything else that's percolating in your beautiful heads?
I have a question about sponsorships. It's not a percolating idea, but I've been toying with the idea now, especially through this crisis, of having more tailored sponsorship levels according to I was thinking of doing that anyway, and was trying that a little bit more anyway, but I saw some heads shaking, so.
Yeah, well, tell us what you're thinking about that.
Like custom sponsorship levels?
Almost.
Yeah.
We found that some, they maybe at a certain level, our sponsorship levels are smaller, like 250, 2,500, 5,000, a lot of them in that range, maybe 75. And they don't necessarily care about, they're not doing it for the exposure, because we don't have that kind of database to do that. We're not that large. So maybe they would want something else, especially now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't-
we have different levels too. And part of it is initially trying to give them different options at each of those different levels. You can bring more people to the meeting, you can bring guests, all that kind of stuff. It's especially difficult right now where we're just kind of inviting everybody to everything that's online as more of a way of catching whoever we can and losing as few as possible. But part of ours was, it was based on the size of the organization too, because ours is more membership as opposed to donors. So if they were over a certain revenue size, then they would be kind of bumped up to the next level, was one way that we did it, but they still had some wiggle room to kind of choose. But if we have, HEB come in as a member, it doesn't make sense to put them at our startup level, that kind of thing.
Right. I love that. So you're internally segmenting your sponsorship prospects based on whether they're a local business, a mid-level company or a large corporation. I think that's a really fantastic idea, because then you can have different asks and language for them. Because like you said, yeah, HEB, which Alexa and Elizabeth is like the biggest grocery store here.
My son lives in Austin.
Oh, yeah,
I
of
know
course, you
all
know.
about HEB.
Right now, they are making a killing.
Yeah.
It's going to be very different than the little coffee shop, you know, that we would be
Exactly.
soliciting. So I think that's a really excellent idea, and something that I would love to keep exploring on these calls. Secondly, Sharon, I think that one thing I'd also love to explore, you know, and this is where you can all get creative and have a little homework, and then hopefully we can chat again next week, is going back to both Alexa and Sharon, your comment that this is an opportunity to really be donor-centered and give our donors something. I think that really applies to sponsorships, because the old, you know, like I said, the old checklist of you get the logo placement and all of that really might not cut it. So what can you offer them that they cannot buy? And my philosophy with events is particularly around like silent auctions or panel raises, is these one-of-a-kind experiences. So are there opportunities that your organizations can provide through sponsorships that the only way they can get them and the only way they can have that relationship with NAMI, for instance, or with your constituents or with your leadership, is by sponsoring? So it could be access, you know, and for someone like, you know, Melanie, where you have these high net worth hospital CEOs, is there some access where it's, you know, networking events or something that someone who's interested could get? You know, for Elizabeth, you've got all these incredible partnerships. There's got to be some really interesting ways that you can leverage that. You know, and immediately for Sharon, it could be that, do they get some presentations, right? Do they get some workplace presentations at a certain level, right? So I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in the work we're doing every day that when we start trying to quantify the sponsorship levels, we forget about. I did an event last year with a very small organization up here north of Austin, and they had never done any sponsorship, so they were really having to start from scratch. And one thing that was really successful for them was all of the sponsorships, I think of 1,000 and up, and their sponsorship levels were mostly low level, had an on-site day of engagement for their employees. And that came out of their board, you know, because one of their board members is a director of operations, and she said, we pay for this stuff. We pay so much to take our staff on site to do, you know, axe throwing or this, to have those employee engagement opportunities. If you give us one that honestly costs less, where we get to invest in a local organization, we know you and love you, it's really checking so many boxes for us. It's a win. And the response to that was really great, because of course they got the sponsorship levels and the table and all of that, but then they got this one-of-a-kind tailored volunteer day. Right. So again, all of that's going to be different depending on your capacity as an organization. But if we can start thinking much more creatively about what we offer our sponsors, I think we'll see ultimately even more success.
Mhm.
I'm seeing heads nodding. So yeah, and I really do love the idea of internally segmenting those lists.
Catherine, you
Any
were
last
great.
thoughts?
You were great. I mean, like, you're such a good facilitator, and I totally enjoyed this. I'm like I'm so proud of you. I've like watched you grow.
I know Alexa, and actually Elizabeth went to the Waldorf school. That's how we know each other from many
okay.
moons, 20 years ago.
Okay.
Emily, thank you so much for joining. Well, y'all, this was really a fantastic way to spend some time and see all of your beautiful faces, and I'm super inspired. I'll send a little bit of a survey, just like a 2-question survey, to let me know what you'd want to see more of or less of. And my hope is that I have these pretty regularly, so I'd love to see you again. Please let me know if there's specific topics. You know, we can spend all day talking about sponsorships. I know KJ is really eager. I had shared at the beginning, she is hoping she doesn't have coronavirus. She's still waiting on the test, but she is sick. So she's really eager to come and share. And then if at any point any of you want to, you know, take the reins and offer some insight into something you're working on that you think might be salient, I would love to put you in the driver's seat, because I think we're all going to learn from each other, and especially working at home, it can get a little insular. So it was a joy to spend the morning with you all. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.